Stihl Australia Proprietary Limited has a concern for every aspect of safety and efficiency throughout its product range. As a result, Stihl have produced this training video to enable consumers to confidently use and be aware of 1. Reduction of time to achieve experienced worker standard. 2. Reduction of accidents. 3. Reduction of machine downtime. And 4. Reduction of waste. Stihl presents Cut Quicks and common sense. We consider you, the operator, the most important aspect of this video. The use of a Cut Quick may be hazardous due to it being a high-speed, fast-cutting power tool. Special safety precautions must be observed to reduce the risk of personal injury and fire. As an operator of outdoor power equipment, you must be in good physical condition and mental health, and not under the influence of any substance or if you are fatigued. Working with Cut Quicks can be strenuous work. It is important to read and understand the maintenance and safety precautions before using your Cut Quick. If you do not understand any instructions or warnings in this training video, please read your owner manual and the Stihl Cut Quick safety booklet. If the operating characteristics or appearance of your Cut Quick differ from those described in this production, or you have limited mechanical expertise, then contact your nearest Stihl representative or dealer for further information and assistance. The range of Stihl Cut Quicks is quite comprehensive, from the 60cc displacement to the 111cc displacement, giving the range of contractors a variety of machinery to choose from for their different applications. The model TS350, having a displacement of 60cc's and weighing 9.8 kilograms, is the ideal machine for hire companies and is well accepted in this industry. This particular machine has a very low profile to the ground area and can be fitted to a trolley with a water attachment. We now have the TS360, the latest in our design of Cut Quicks. A displacement of 60cc's, weight of 9.8 kilos, it has all the safety features that are required for a Cut Quick. Anti-vibration, electronic ignition, user-friendly. It's ideally suited for the contractor who has the applications of paving, cutting concrete, reinforcing, and hand operation applications for government departments, hire companies, and the general user. It also can be fitted to a trolley with a water attachment fitted to it. The TS510 is our next model. Having a displacement of 89cc's and weighing 14 kilos, it has an additional advantage to our smaller models. It can be fitted with a 14-inch wheel and has all the safety features that are recommended for the use with Cut Quicks, being anti-vibration, electronic ignition, and it can also be fitted to a trolley and has a water attachment available as an additional accessory. Our last model is the TS760, which has a displacement of 111cc's and weighs 14.2 kilos. Now this is the big brother of the whole range. It's designed to perform for the utmost in cutting capabilities that's required, such as railway lines, heavy concrete, reinforcement concrete, and any application that needs long, durable cutting. It can also be fitted with our trolley, and also water attachments are available as an accessory. We'd like to bring to the attention of our viewers that all our Cut Quicks can be fitted with 3 different types of wheels. The first being our stone wheel, which is used on concrete, asphalt, reinforced concrete, and any type of stone material. The next is our steel wheel that can be used on any steel fabrications, such as in the car wrecking industry, railway lines, etc. The last is our diamond wheel, which is the all-purpose wheel to be used on most applications. As mentioned in the description of our models, trolleys and water attachments complete with water bottles are available for all models. Stihl can provide you with a machine to suit the application with appropriate cutting wheels. And if long jobs are your application, then the use of a trolley is highly recommended. Eye protection is important. Loose objects may be thrown towards the operator by the cutting disc. Do not consider using a Cut-Quick without eye protection. Non-fogging vented safety goggles and/or a face screen are a must. Wear an approved safety helmet to protect your head from sparks and debris. Wear earmuffs or earplugs to protect your hearing from the sound of machine and its cutting action. When working with a Cut-Quick, it's recommended to wear a respirator as dust, gases and abrasives can be a hazard to your health. Protect your hands with heavy-duty non-slip gloves. If working near a power source, gloves should be insulated. Prolonged use of Cut-Quicks or other power equipment which expose the operator to vibration may cause white fingers, better known as Raynaud's phenomenon. This reduces the hand's ability to feel and regulate temperature, produces numbness, and may cause nerve and circulation damage and tissue necrosis. Wearing gloves and operating equipment with anti-vibration systems will reduce the possibility of this happening. Proper clothing is required. Flame retardant, high visibility overalls or trousers are recommended. Avoid loose-fitting clothing or other objects and keep your clothing free of fuel, oil and grease. A good footing is most important when using a Cut-Quick. Wear safety boots with non-slip soles and steel toe caps, and make sure they're insulated if working near a power source.
Hi, my name's Clive Townley. I'm the Safety Officer for Stihl Australia. I'm here today to talk about Cut-Quicks. As you're aware, they're a high-performance power tool. Today I'd like to talk to you about the safety and maintenance aspects of this type of equipment. If you've never used this type of equipment, I suggest that you read your owner's manual. First off, I'd like to show you how to set the guard. The guard's adjustable and it should be positioned so that this part of the guard is as close to as possible to the cutting point so that it throws the debris forward and away from the operator. That's most important. The other thing you should check is that there's no play in the bearings and that they're not gravelly, that it turns over smoothly. The other thing to be careful of is that it's got the correct thrust washers on both sides of the disc. They should be approximately 1/3 the diameter of the disc, and make sure it has the blotters in between the abrasive and the washers. Make sure that that's tight also. Use the tools supplied with the machine. This end can be used for tightening any of the screws, the torque screws in the machine. This will give you the correct amount of torque, and it's also used to lock the arbor to replace the cutting wheel. You use this tool here to undo the nut. Rather than hold on to the outside of the wheel, you've locked it with the other service tool. Check the drive dogs on the inside. Make sure that they're in good condition and haven't been filed away. Take the wheel off. Check that the arbor sleeve hasn't remained on the arbor. Make sure it's clean. Before you replace the disc, make sure that the blotter hasn't been removed like that one. Make sure they're in good condition. As you go to replace it, put the sleeve on first so that it positions the disc correctly on the arbor. Then position the drive dogs into these two slots like so. Firmly tighten up the stud. Make sure you've used the right disc for the application, whether it be for steel or stone. Make sure that the rev range is within the rev range of the machine. Before you go to use the machine, that's most important that you've checked those 2 points. The cutting wheel is normally mounted inboard like this, as it offers better balance, but it can be positioned outboard to cut up close to fences or walls or whatever. And you do that by undoing these 3 screws here. Once you've loosened these off, like so, you can then fit the spanner onto this cam adjuster here to move it backwards or forwards to tighten the V-belt, which I'll explain later. What we'll do now is remove these 3 studs completely and show you how to fit the cutting wheel outboard. If you need to increase or decrease the amount of pressure on the thrust washers to make the guard stiffer or looser, you can simply position the screwdriver through these slots into the head of the screw, and these cup washers act as a tensioning device. They put pressure on the rubber friction pads. You can adjust that through there. If these become clogged with concrete, you can take those 2 screws out completely and remove those and wash them in water. Don't use diesel or any oil on them, or otherwise they'll gather dust and debris and you'll have to repeat the process. Make the studs finger tight. Tighten this rear stud. Make that a little bit firmer to support the cam adjuster. Place the spanner on the cam adjuster and adjust the V-belt so it's got approximately 5mm to 10mm deflection. If the belt's not adjusted correctly, it'll slip, or if it's over tightened, it'll increase the wear on the bearings in the engine. Then make firm the other 2 studs. Now you've got the cutter in the correct position to work close to things down the sides of walls, and it makes it rather more versatile to use. Previously I mentioned the friction pads on the inside and outside of the guard. It's important that there is enough friction on there to hold or support the guard from flopping around loosely, but it shouldn't be over tightened so that you've got to take your hands off the handles to adjust the guard to chase the profile as you cut around. And to do that, I'll show you the maintenance required to make that work efficiently. The procedure's quite simple. You loosen the nut off, remove the pulley and the key. These screws normally have Loctite on the threads, the Loctite blue. There are a series of cup washers that should be positioned opposing each other to put the tension on the friction pads. The friction pads should be clean and free of abrasive or concrete dust. They should be cleaned with water, not with diesel or anything that's got oil that could attract the dust. Make sure they're clean. When you're reassembling this section, you do these studs up firmly, and don't forget the blue Loctite. When you've done up the studs firmly, then you replace the pulley and the key and do the nut up firmly. Now I'd like to talk about fuel. With two-strokes, you should use two-stroke air-cooled engine oil, not outboard oil. With the still two-stroke lube, you can use it at 50:1. Any other lube, you should use it at 25:1. Mix it in small quantities so that it's fresh, and use it within a reasonable period of time. There's nothing worse than trying to start an engine with stale fuel. When you fuel your machine, don't overfill it. Fill it up to this point here. This mark will tell you when it's at the appropriate level. Make sure that this O-ring in this elbow is in good condition. In other words, there's no leaks at this point. When you finish fueling, make sure you've placed the cap on securely and wipe off any excess fuel. With the larger cut quicks, don't attempt to remove this cap from this front compartment. It acts as an expansion chamber, and unless there's adequate pressure in there, it won't push the fuel back into the fuel tank. And once again, when you fuel the tank in this machine, leave the fuel down approximately 10 mil to allow for a little bit of expansion. And remember the 5 main rules of fueling. No smoking. Fuel the equipment over bare ground. Make sure there's no embers or flame source. Wipe off any spilled fuel. Make sure you've got no fuel over your clothing. And of course, check for fuel leaks before you use the equipment. Before you start work with your cut quick, you want to make sure that you've got all your guards and signs in position. Make sure that adequate warning has been provided to the public. Ensure that bystanders are at a safe distance. Make sure there's been adequate attention paid to fire prevention. Make sure that you've got an extinguisher on the site. Before cutting material like this, make sure that it's stable. Make sure you don't have to take 1 foot off the ground to hold it from moving. You should have it in a fixed position. Before cutting walls or partitions, check on the other side for gas cylinders or any other hazards. Check for power cables that are fitted inside walls. Check for high air pressure lines. Car hoists are operated by lines. Check high pressure steam lines, boilers, in dairies, laundries, etc. If you use a cut quick to free a victim from a machine or an industrial accident, has adequate support been provided to keep the item stable? Has the power been turned off? Have any pressure systems been deactivated? Hydraulic, steam, air or water? Has shielding of the victim been provided? Is a foam extinguisher handy? Has heat transfer been considered? Has adequate first aid equipment been provided and the ambulance, doctor and police been contacted? When cutting up a motor vehicle, has consideration been given to fuel tank explosion, fuel lines, gas shock absorbers, air conditioners, batteries, glass, spring tension, etc.? If no other means are available at a road accident site to remove a victim, wet down the area. Make sure the fire brigade's on hand with charged lines and foam extinguishers. If you go to cut through a concrete wall or a steel wall, make sure there's no LP gas cylinders at the back of the wall before you cut it. There's quite a few hazards that you might encounter when you go to use this type of equipment.
Diamond wheels have better wear and performance characteristics because they make a narrow cut. All steel wheels are laser welded and can be run dry or with water. The bond in the diamonds of the wheel are: soft bond will cut hard material, hard bond will cut soft material, and the classification of BR bond is a best general purpose wheel. Diamond wheels have an arrow to show the correct direction of rotation. This can be checked by observing direction of comet tails supporting diamonds. These face the rear. Diamond wheels should be inspected for undercutting of the bond, flatness caused by hammering of the bond, the bogging of bond, that is, no exposure of diamonds, core fatigue or cracking, dovetailing or ovaling of bore, segments loss or damage. Wet cutting produces less dust and longer life of the wheel. Diamond wheels cut reinforced concrete, natural stone, concrete stumps and poles, pavers, bricks and clay pipes.
Cut quicks are designed for right-hand use only. When you hold a cut quick, you should have a firm grasp with your thumbs underneath the handles so that your hands fully encircle the handles. When you go to cut with a cut quick, when you depress the throttle fully, you've got a good grasp of the rear handle. The normal stance is a boxer stance, and try and position the cutting wheel so that it throws the debris clear of your body. If there's enough space, you should adopt an A-frame stance. It allows better control of the machine. You can brace yourself with it, and when it cuts through, you've got more control to support it at the end of the cut. If you've got a cut below your knee level to keep your vertebrae within 20 degrees, if you get down on the ground with it, you put one knee on the ground, your toe on the ground, your heel against your buttock. You can brace yourself with your left elbow and your left knee. That way you've got better control. But don't forget to make sure that the debris goes clear of your right leg. It's most important that you adopt this stance because it's easier on your back. If you go to cut with a cut quick in a horizontal fashion, turn it over that way and hold the machine against your waist as you cut forward. That way any debris that comes away will go away from you. The fire brigade, if they want to cut through walls or through doors, should use a steeple type cut. Cut from the top down with two cuts, fold the material back so that the hoses don't jag on the material that you've cut, and you can draw the hoses through. If you wish to cut steel like a window, make your bottom cut first, like so, cut through, then put your two vertical cuts in, and then make your final cut, the top horizontal cut. Make sure that the handles are clean and dry, free of oil. It's most important to maintain a good grip. Try and use a cut quick without assistance when you go to start it or when you're using it. If you've got any helpers or bystanders, make sure that they're aware of any of hazards or where any debris is going to come away from the machine. Don't work off a ladder. Make sure you're in a good secure spot when you use a cut quick. Don't use it above your shoulder height. It's most important that you don't use it this way. Make sure that if there's any breeze about, that you utilise that breeze to take the debris or any fumes or that away from you. It's most important that you keep clear of this debris. Make sure that when you've marked out the job, you're not facing into the sun, and that'll blind you when you start to make the cuts. It's most important that you mark out the job before you start. Where possible, conduct a dry run to make sure that you've got adequate clearance for your body and the machine. Take particular caution when re-entering any previous cuts. Don't cock or jack the cutting wheel to one side. When you go to re-enter that cut, make it as smooth as possible, preferably in a pendulum type effect. And don't forget, these are cut-off wheels. They're not designed for grinding. They won't stand the stress applied to the side of them. They're designed as a cut-off wheel. If you keep these points in mind, and don't forget your owner's manual, I'm sure that you'll be successful with this type of equipment. I'd like to explain the controls to you. There's three components that make up the throttle. There's the interlock, which must be depressed before you can apply throttle to the machine. And there's a cold start pin that when the throttle is pressed up, the pin's engaged for the cold start mode. The choke is positioned here and the on-off switch in this position here. Once you've applied the choke, you pull the engine over until it fires, and then you must push the choke in, continue to pull it over. The instant that the machine starts, you simply blip the throttle so that it disengages the starting pin, and from there you can proceed with your cutting or whatever you wish to do. You must never leave that engaged when you go to use this tool. You must ensure that you've got the correct handle on the starter. If you use a square shafted screwdriver or a file or anything like that, it'll cut through the tendons on the insides of your fingers. You should also inspect the starter rope to make sure it's in good condition so that you don't suffer any ligament damage if it breaks halfway through the stroke. Now, when you go to start the machine, put your choke on, engage your interlock, make sure your ignition's on. You can have an upright stance, put your foot through the rear handle, lock the left elbow and push down with your body weight on the machine, and in a T-type stance place your left foot in a comfortable position. Draw the starter cord up and engage the pulse till you turn the engine over, then draw the rope up to approximately that position there. Don't lift your head, don't roll your back over, that's all you need to do. Okay? If you've suffered any lower lumbar injuries, break your stance, come down on your knee like that, put your elbow against your ribs and push down on the machine and draw the starter up to that point there. And with the larger machines, the controls are in a slightly different position. The stop switch is positioned over here, the choke lever over here, the throttle and interlock here, the cold start button, and there's a decompressor down here which you push in to start the engine. The procedure's the same. You engage the choke, pull the engine over until it fires, take your choke off, pull it over. Once it starts, you just blip the throttle and it'll return to idle. The safest place to start a cold cut quick is on the ground. Engage the choke, turn the ignition on, engage the cold start button. Once the engine's fired, turn off the choke. Don't start the cut quick in a cut. Make sure you're in a well ventilated area. Make sure there's good light before you go to use the machine. If you want to start the machine and you're standing in water or mud or somewhere where you can't put the cut quick on the ground, put the right handle or rear handle behind the right knee. Place the left knee against the fan housing, keep the left arm locked and draw the handle up like so, but never drop start a cut quick.
The maintenance of your equipment is most important. Max Mouzon explains.
Right, firstly we should check to make sure that all the safety features are working, that the throttle cannot be pulled without the interlock pushed down, the half stop button is working, the on-off switch is functioning and the choke is operating. Once we've checked that the safety features are working, we should then check the anti-vibration system to see that that's functioning and none of the rubber mounts on these points are torn. And once we establish that the machine's in a safe condition, we then can really continue the maintenance.
The air filter is the next step. It's a two-part system. First, the paper element. This can only be cleaned by lightly tapping the filter on the palm of your hand. The secondary filter is a fiberglass flocked insert, which is a backup to the main filter. This can be washed out in a solvent or warm soapy water. This air intake must be checked for dust. And when working with the water attachment, clean out the slurry buildup. Also, make sure the fuel tank is clean of dust and dirt before refueling. To clean the fuel tank, remove the 4 screws from the side cover, checking for dust buildup inside and around the housing. Remove the vent hoses and check the starter housing